Let's go.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
You're positive.
Yeah.
I can see that's recording.
Yeah, it's fine. We're good.
We had a couple of mishaps
Uh-oh.
where one or the other was not recording. We had for both Kelly and Nate.
Oh
We had
my
to redo
gosh.
the intro. So
It wasn't like terrible though.
mental note.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now we're just super careful
Yes,
about everything
yeah.
that we do.
Just paranoid, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and then
A little
we-
paranoia never hurt anybody.
we also had a mishap where Justin turned that thing off, or you disconnected or something, or
and
turned off
lost
that.
the whole podcast.
Oh my
Thank God.
god.
And it was just like a pod between
45
us two
yeah.
at least.
Oh.
All right, we're all going barefoot, huh? We're letting the dogs bark.
Letting the dogs bark.
Yeah, it's better for
You know, a lot of people charge extra for this.
Oh yeah, no free content.
Okay, so subscribe and like.
kidding.
And also send us $5. Ellia, put your Venmo. We'll put it down somewhere.
Should we put emojis over our toes? in
Yeah,
the video?
absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe that's what you should do for money.
Oh, I
But Finder,
feet pics can sell for a lot of money.
Heck
I'm
yeah.
just gonna say that.
we just had the LRX girl, Christina, talk to us about her kid. Well, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't put that out there. Never mind.
There you
So
go.
anyway,
there are options.
There are options.
what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Pod Counterculture. I'm your host, Justin.
And Heather.
And today we are joined by a very, very special guest, a friend of ours, Ellia Miller.
Hi guys.
So, Ellia, when we start the pod, what we've been doing is we've been giving people flowers, hypothetical flowers, or what? Not hypothetical. What's the word?
Oh my God, I forgot what the word was.
Whatever. We give flowers. Symbolic flowers. And by that, we mean we give them a compliment.
Figurative.
Yeah,
That's
figurative
what it was.
flowers.
Figurative flowers.
We give them compliments. And so we met you. We'll get into how we met you. But I remember when we first met you, I mean, obviously, we didn't know who you were at all. And I was like kind of nervous to meet you because we were going to stay in a house with you for like 4 days.
I know. Ashley told you, I think, oh yeah, the semifinals athlete, and then you told me that. I was like, what? Ooh.
Yeah. We were nervous because
I'm a CrossFit fangirl.
Yeah, so it was a big deal. And so, but I just remember literally after the weekend was done, I was like, Ellia is one of the sweetest people I've ever actually met. And like, you just like cared, and you let Heather train with you. You were going to let us train with you. And I've had my run-ins with like CrossFit people I was telling you before, where I'm just like, damn, they are a dud. Like, I just can't stand this person, And you were not one of those people. And I was super happy that we actually got to have the time to spend with you. And so, yeah, it was a really good time.
That means so much to me. Thank you.
Yeah, dude, of course.
One of my biggest things is I just always want to be genuine. And
Yeah.
It's funny that you were like nervous to be in a house with a semifinals athlete because I absolutely do not see myself that way. Like I don't see myself as somebody that people would be like nervous or excited to meet or anything like that, because I still feel like I look up to athletes in the sport that way.
Yeah.
And like it's funny, I was just talking about this at dinner, how day one at the CrossFit Games today, and I had like 10 people come up to me and ask to take a picture with me, like strangers.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so weird that people like know who I am and want to talk to me and meet me. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, 3-4 years ago, I was watching semifinals, seeing these athletes at semifinals,
Yeah.
and just thinking, oh my God, I want to be them. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I want to do. And they're doing it.
Yep.
And now I'm like, oh, wait, I'm doing it.
You're doing the thing.
That's me now.
Yeah, that's what we're
It's
talking about.
weird.
Yeah. But I think you need to get used to that, because I think you're like more famous than you probably think you are. Right? Because
I think so.
on our way up here, we're like, maybe we should because it's been a long time since we like seen each other. Like, maybe we should listen to a podcast that she's been on, because I always see that you're on something, And so we started listening to one, and we had to turn it off because it was like too CrossFit-y to get prepared for what we're going to talk to you about. But yeah, I think like you're all over the place, and everyone knows who you are. Savon knows who you are. Andrew Hiller knows who you are.
With him? Or?
I was on Shut Up and Scribble with
Oh, okay, that's
Taylor
what
and
it
JR.
was,
Yeah.
which is
that
cool.
was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I didn't listen to it yet. With Monster Games and stuff, I'm very behind on my podcasts, but
I feel that.
I need to catch up. On my way back and forth to Madison, I will be.
Yeah, so get used to it, sister, because you're famous.
Yeah.
You're on your way there.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So, okay. A little brief intro to Ellia. You've done a lot of things, I feel like a lot of things. You were in the military.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly did you do? Army?
So I was in the Army. Yep.
Okay. She was Army. You went to college.
Mm-hmm.
You went to grad school.
Yep.
And you are also doing the CrossFit thing.
Yes.
Did I miss
Grad
anything
school
else?
PhD, right? You have a PhD?
I did
Or
not
master's?
finish my
Oh,
PhD.
okay.
I finished my master's and then I left my program.
We'll get into that for
Yeah.
sure because I really want to get there. But did I miss anything?
I coach
You coach?
and I'm trying to think of anything else. I think that's like the big things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, sweet. So give a little. I gave the briefest intro that I could think of. Now I want you to kind of explain, like, if somebody comes up to you and talks to you, like, what do you do? Who are you? Where do you come from?
Yeah. All right. So, well, right now I'm a CrossFit athlete.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
And a CrossFit coach. I, for most of my life, like childhood, thought I was going to be a doctor.
Okay.
I went to undergrad for pre-med, and I majored in neurobiology. I was in the ROTC program while I was in undergrad for the Army. So when I graduated from undergrad, I commissioned into the California National Guard as an officer in the Army. And my plan was to take a year, study for the MCAT, take the MCAT, apply to med school. I ended up asking a professor if she would write me a letter of recommendation. She offered me a position in her research lab. She was looking to hire a lab manager. I had never done any scientific research before, but I figured, hey, it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Why not?
Were you getting paid for that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sweet.
It was like a regular full-time job.
Awesome.
Took that year, applied to med school, took the MCAT, applied to med school. I applied to over 40 med schools. I took out a
Holy
loan.
shit.
I was going to say,
apply to
that
med
had to have
school.
been so expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
I
to
took
apply
out-
to
yep.
med schools?
I took out like a $5,000.
It's
loan to apply to
expensive.
med
How much
school.
does that cost? I didn't even know
Oh
that
my
it cost
God.
money.
So you have to pay for your primary application,
Yeah.
which is the same application that gets sent to every med school, but you have to pay for every med school you want to send it to.
Are you
And then if
kidding?
you want to apply to Texas med schools, you have to do a separate primary application because Texas has
a
their
different
own
country.
system. Yeah, Texas is its own country. And then med school applications is literally just a money-making scheme for med
Yeah.
schools because
It's-
on
That's college in
once you
general.
submit your primary, as long as you meet like certain minimums for GPA, MCAT score, whatever, they're gonna send you an invitation to submit a secondary application. And then the secondary application is when they'll ask you a bunch of like short answer essay questions and you have to pay to submit your secondary
You have
application.
to pay again?
Yes.
What?
So primary application, you write your personal statement, which is like why do you want to be a doctor? But then the secondary application, each school has their own set of questions and they're all very similar, but they find a way for them to be just different enough that you have to write a new short essay
No
for every
way.
school.
Oh my God. What a scam.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So after secondary applications, then comes interview invitations. Some schools do like a virtual preliminary interview to decide whether or not they want to invite you for an in-person interview.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't get a single interview.
Now
Wow.
I'm really happy I went to PA school.
Right?
Well, imagine it's not just the application fee; it's the traveling and all
Yep.
that too.
Yep.
But okay, so you did not get one
Did not
invite.
get a single interview.
Wow.
And you applied to 40?
40 over 40. Yep.
Did you ever reach out to any of them and like ask?
No, and it's like they get so many applications. It's literally just a numbers game,
Wow.
and I didn't have a 4.0.
That's what I was going to
I
say.
didn't
Did you have
I
the
didn't have a
things
bad
they
GPA.
want?
I had like a 3.7, 3.8.
I thought that was all you really needed for med school.
It's not anymore.
Really?
And so the other hard part of it, for me at least, was a lot of the schools well, every school had some question on their secondary application about diversity. And as a white female, the majority of applicants to med school right now are females.
Yeah.
So like in most of the world, being a female is considered like a minority because a lot of things are very male dominated, but med school applications are female dominated.
Sure, yeah.
And so I also, you know, I didn't come from like a financially challenged childhood. I didn't live in like a you know, an underserved area.
You weren't diverse enough.
Yeah, I didn't have anything in that category that I could really be like, hey, I bring this to your school. And so I think that was a big part of it. But I think another big part of it, and this was kind of like reflection after the fact, I think through the application process and having to answer over 40 times, why do you want to be a doctor? I realized that I didn't want to be a doctor.
Okay. Yeah.
And I have a feeling that probably came through in my applications.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that most of my applications in retrospect were actually genuine. At the time, I might have thought they were genuine, but I don't think they really were. Because
So why did you think that you wanted to go to med school then?
so
Or was
that's
that your
like-
plan? And that
well,
was-
yeah,
Well, she said
and
since
that
a
was-
kid you wanted
yeah,
to be a
it was
doctor.
just like, you know, when you're young, it's like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you get doctor, astronaut, president,
Right.
and like,
President.
what other options do you get? That's kind of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was out there in the world. And so, you know, as a kid, I said doctor, and then it just stuck with me.
I had the same thing.
And I didn't consider anything
Me too.
else.
And I became a doctor.
Well, I became a PA, but
But I just never considered anything else because I didn't even know what else existed.
yeah.
And so it was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. So when I didn't get into med school and I started to realize like, hey, don't think this is actually the career path for me
How long did you spend
on those
applying and
It was
getting
a year-long
rejected?
process.
A year. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So my first year out of undergrad, that was, I was working in the research lab and I was doing med school applications.
Okay.
I worked in the research lab for a couple more years after that. And after I realized that med school wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, I was like, well, this research is kind of fun. Maybe I want to go to grad school. So I applied to grad school. I ended up getting into a PhD program at Princeton for neuroscience. And I started that in 2016. At the time, I was still in the California Army National Guard. I did an interstate transfer to the New Jersey National Guard. And I started grad school in like the fall of 2016.
What were you specifically studying? Because I remember you telling me, because we kind of when I was in college, I actually switched my major to neuroscience from kinesiology, and I was just broke as fuck, so I needed to leave college and I needed to go make money, so I didn't get to follow that path. But I remember we kind of had like a similar interest. I want you to talk about that a little bit. What were
Like
you
the
studying?
research I was doing?
Yeah.
So my research in grad school mainly focused on dopamine and reward learning. And so I was studying the dopamine pathway involved in operant reward learning. So there's two different types of reward learning. One is Pavlovian, which is like when you think of Pavlov's dog, he rings the bell and the dog starts drooling because he's made this connection that when he rings the bell, he's going to get a steak.
Yeah.
So that's some sort of stimulus. In this case, it was an auditory stimulus, hearing the bell ring. And then the response was drooling because the dog expects food.
Right.
So that's Pavlovian reward learning.
Yeah.
I was studying operant reward learning, which instead of a stimulus creating a reward response, it's an action creating a reward response.
Okay.
So I would train cohorts of mice on a behavioral task, and they would be in a box with two levers. And depending on which lever they pressed, there would be a different probability that they would receive a sugar water reward. So they would want to press the levers because mice love sugar water.
Yeah.
And so there the action is press the lever, reward response because you're expecting sugar water. But because it wasn't always 100% probability of receiving that reward, we could look at what happened when the mouse was expecting a reward and got the reward. We could look at what happened when the mouse was expecting a reward and didn't get a reward. At different time points within the task, the probabilities on the levers would switch. So then one lever that was the high probability of reward would become the low probability of reward. And the mouse would have to learn, like, hey, this lever that was giving me a lot of sugar water is no longer giving me as much sugar water, so I need to learn to press the other lever. And so we could look at a lot of different just like time points within that reward learning process, like how many lever presses does it take for the mouse to realize that the probabilities have switched?
Right.
What are those dopamine neurons doing during this whole process?
Yeah.
So the 3 methods that we would use, we would either activate dopamine neurons at specific time points during the task, we would inhibit dopamine neurons during specific time points in the task, or we would just image the activity of the dopamine neurons throughout the task.
Interesting.
And the goal was to try and figure out what that pathway is encoding when you are learning a reward learning task, basically.
That's so, because I could have so many questions on your CrossFit stuff based off of the things that you studied. Have you ever like taken that into practice, like the things that you studied?
I haven't, but
would it be applicable, do you think?
Yeah, I do think it would be an interesting topic to go into. So the problem that I had, and a big reason why I left grad school, I felt like I was doing things that were so specific and so like down in the nitty gritty. I could not find a way to see the bigger picture value in
I
what
remember
I
you
was
talking
doing.
about that too. Yeah.
Like it was, and science as a whole, and especially neuroscience, because it's a newer field, with this whole publish or perish mentality in academic research, if you are not constantly publishing, you lose your funding, you lose your lab.
Yeah.
And you are not going to get published if you're repeating already published experiments.
Sure. Yeah.
So we make all of these assumptions for our research based on published experiments, but those experiments haven't necessarily been repeated and fully understood by other people within the field. And like if you try to repeat it, you're basically just wasting time and money because nobody's going to publish that. And that's time that you could be spending on research that nobody has done yet that will get published and get you more grant money and keep your lab running. So we would make these assumptions based on basically data that one lab was like, yeah, this is how it is. And everybody else is like, oh, okay, got it. And then if you did try to repeat some experiments, we would have issues where it's like, hey, we can't replicate the results in this research paper because their mice live in a vivarium that's kept at 78 degrees and our mice live in a vivarium that's kept at 77 degrees.
Right.
Or their mice are handled by women and our mice are handled by men. And like there were literally differences in scientific results based on whether the mouse handlers were male or female.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I just got to a point where I was like, all right, if it has to be, and I understand why it has to be that level of control, because when you're trying to figure things out, you can't have
so much variance.
You have to have one variable that you focus on or a very small number of variables you focus on. However, when it comes to applying that stuff to the real world is messy.
Super variable. Yeah.
Like you don't have like, oh, well, we know that this is how it is because the world is at 78 degrees.
Right.
Like it's not a thing.
Yeah.
And so I had a hard time reconciling that and truly believing that I was doing something productive rather than just kind of like spinning my wheels and filling time.
Got it. So you decide to leave.
Yes.
After how long?
It was about 2.5 years. I finished my master's degree.
Okay.
And then when you start in a PhD program, you are, can't remember what the term is, but you're not considered a PhD candidate until you pass your general exam. And
There are so many fucking hoops and ladders with this stuff. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
This sounds terrible.
So your general exam generally happens between your second and third year.
Okay.
And that's when you present your research plan for your PhD to your generals committee. Your generals committee is like a group of professors within the department who just sit and listen to you present this plan. They read your research proposal. And then after you present what your plan is, they just spend like 2.5 hours grilling you with questions about why you chose certain things, what the previous research says, why you're doing this instead of that. What results do you expect? Why do you expect those results? And like, it was the most stressful 3 hours of my life.
So you did this.
I did that. So once you pass your general exam, then you're considered a PhD candidate. And at least for my program, you were eligible to apply for an incidental master's degree. So I applied for my master's degree. Because it's an incidental master's, it is not a master of science.
Okay.
So I have a master of arts in neuroscience.
What?
Interesting.
I didn't even know that was. I don't know anything about school, I guess.
Well, and the
I don't
funny
either.
thing is, anybody within neuroscience
Yeah.
would see a master's degree in neuroscience and they would say, okay, so you dropped out of a PhD program because there's no such thing as a master's program in
No
neuroscience.
way. Wow. Okay.
At least there wasn't a couple years ago. That may have changed at this point, but
Okay.
that was like, you don't get a master's degree. You can't do anything with a master's degree in neuroscience
Sure.
that you couldn't do without a master's degree in neuroscience.
Wow. What the heck? That's so weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do have a master's degree, kind of a useless master's degree. But yeah, that was one of the reasons I decided to leave my program.
How far out were you from, like, so you did that?
Oh yeah, I got my incidental master's in October of 2018. Now in mid 2023, I have 3 classmates that started in my cohort of 7. I think 3 of them are still in grad school. One of them just defended his thesis like 2 or 3 months ago.
Wow.
One defended maybe like 7 or 8 months ago.
Okay.
And then I think one defended within the past year or 2. So
That's a long
yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Time.
So what happens?
You would
after
have been a
get
doctor
the-
by now, right?
Probably
How old are
not. I probably still
She'd have a
would
couple
have
years
been in
left,
grad
right?
school.
you? No, I mean, if you would have went to med school.
Oh, if I would have went to med school. Yeah, so I'm 31 right now.
Yeah, you would have been.
I applied to med school in 2014. Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So what happens after you get this incidental master's? What happens after that?
So that's when I left my program. Initially, I took a leave of absence because I couldn't fully commit to leaving the program completely.
Okay.
Why?
I was scared to close the door
Why?
because I knew that once I left the program, there was no going back. Like, I would not be able to go back to Princeton. I would not be able to go back to any neuroscience PhD program.
Because of you or because they would shut the door?
Because they would shut the door.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that like frowned upon?
Yeah, if you drop out of a PhD program, you're probably not getting back into any PhD
You're just
program
blacklisted.
ever.
Dang, dude.
Wow, savage.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So
But
then-
you
So-
knew you wanted it was
Deep
kind of
down,
like,
I knew it was like convincing myself that that was the right decision for me.
was it just because you didn't feel like you were doing something productive to like the real world, or what was really the
So that
core
was-
reason
That
you're
was
like,
part of it. Another part of it was it was not a lifestyle I wanted to live.
okay,
I was in lab 7 days a week. I was there most days, like 10 to 12 hours a day.
wow,
There is no off time. Like it just doesn't exist. And like my advisor would talk to me about work-life balance, but this was the same advisor who, her and her husband were both professors in the neuroscience department at the university. They had 2 kids who they almost never saw because their parents took care of their kids because they were always in lab.
And she was trying to lecture you on having a work-life balance?
Yeah. And she was like, I have a great work-life balance. I was like,
How old's your
you're
kid?
literally here every day for 12 hours. You almost never see your kid to feed them dinner and tuck them into bed.
Yeah.
Maybe. And some nights they're probably already asleep by the time you get home. Like that might be your work-life balance, but that is not an appropriate work-life balance in my mind.
Yeah.
And that's not a work-life balance that I want to have for my life.
What were the things that like you felt you were missing out on most during that period of time? Like what were the sacrifices that you had to make to live that lifestyle?
Literally everything.
Yeah.
I got into CrossFit when I moved to New Jersey and started grad school. My previous gym in California, I did a lot of powerlifting, started learning some Olympic lifting, and I wanted to continue Olympic lifting in New Jersey, and I didn't know where else to go, so I just joined a CrossFit gym.
Sweet.
And so while I was in grad school, I was not like anywhere near the level of athlete that I am now. I was literally just, taking a 1-hour class, like 4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And what really struck me was when I realized that while I was in lab, or no, while I was at the gym, every minute that I was at the gym, I felt guilty for not being in the lab.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Literally an hour a day to
Yeah.
go to the gym. And
do
I
something
felt
for yourself.
guilty for not being in lab.
Yeah.
And like there were people in my department who would make me feel guilty for going to the gym.
Nerds.
But
That's interesting because
yeah, it
the
was
gym.
like, oh, you're not at lab at 7 a.m. and leaving at 9 p.m. What's wrong with you?
Right.
Do you not care about your research? You must not care. Why are you here if you don't care? Like that was the response that I got from a lot of people.
That's very interesting, especially for like a neuroscience lab, because you would think that they'd be like pivy to the fact that like you need to take breaks to stay focused or, things like that. Or unless they're all abusing like caffeine, like or Adderall and whatever. But yeah, that's interesting. So you chose to leave. Why exactly? Like what exactly was the reason that you chose to like?
I think it was a combination of everything.
Okay.
Yeah. And just realizing that like, feeling like I wasn't having the impact that I initially thought research would have, and understanding that it wasn't the lifestyle I wanted. It all kind of just culminated in me realizing that I was very unhappy. And like depression is very common in PhD programs and in research in general. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot of work for little to no reward.
Yeah.
And I was never like clinically diagnosed with depression or anything, but I probably could have been.
Okay.
It was not a good time in my life.
Yeah.
And so I think deep down I knew that like the only way to fix it was to get out.
Okay. And then you got out.
And then I got out.
So good. Awesome. On that note, hold on one second. I'm going to restart this camera.
Okay.
In your 2XL shirt and your size small booty shorts.
That's why I chose this shirt.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So you leave.
Yep.
So were you making money
Yes.
in the lab? Okay.
Yeah. So PhD programs in science are generally funded.
Okay.
So I was making like $30,000 a year to be
All
in
right.
grad school.
Did you have a plan? Like, oh, I'm going to do what I'm going to do next? Or like, were you
After
like,
grad
I got to go get a job? Like,
so
no,
what
when you
happened?
decided to
when
quit.
I left. I had no idea. I ended up working at, I worked retail.
Nice.
I had a master's degree in neuroscience from Princeton, and I worked retail.
Where'd you work?
A little gift shop in downtown Princeton
Heck
called
yeah.
Homestead Princeton.
And it was probably way better.
And I actually had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so I got the job because my roommate's friend had worked there previously. And she said they were looking to hire somebody for, it was like going into winter and Christmas and everything. And they were looking for some seasonal employees. And so she connected me with the owners. And when I met with them for my interview, they were like, you realize you're very overqualified for this, right? I was like, yeah, I know. And they're like, it's going to be like insulting what we're going to pay you to do this. And I was like, that's okay. I just need something to pay rent until I figure out what I want to do with my life. And this is something that I've never done. And I think it's going to be fun and exciting until I figure my shit out.
Yeah.
So I worked there. I only worked there actually for about 3 months because right after I started that job, I found out that I was getting deployed.
Okay.
So I was in the New Jersey National Guard at the time. It was the end of 2018, and I left, I think, end of January 2019 to start our pre-mobilization training for the deployment.
So, okay, let's fit this in real quick. Where and when does CrossFit fit into all this? You join a gym in Jersey, right?
Yeah, so started out with the powerlifting, Olympic lifting in California. We did like a little bit of like CrossFit type stuff, but it wasn't a CrossFit gym.
Sure.
You know, occasionally my coach would make us do burpees and assault bike. I think actually
It's a good combo.
At that time it was an Airdyne.
Nice. Dude, the new ones are nice.
Ooh, I might have to check those
Super
out.
nice.
So I moved to New Jersey.
Okay.
Started this CrossFit gym in 2016. Did the Open in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in the regional days. And in New Jersey, I was in the Northeast region.
Okay.
And in 2017 Open, I finished like 750 in the Northeast.
Wow.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, maybe I'm actually kind of good at this.
Yeah.
And so for the next year or two, I was like, all right, I want to see what happens if I actually like try. Like, this could be a lot of fun.
Exactly what Kelly said.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Okay.
So 2018, I finished top 150 in the Northeast.
Wow.
But at the time, you know, regionals, you had to be like top 20 in the region to qualify for regionals.
Okay.
So I still had a ways to go. But that was 2018. I was like, all right, 2019, I'm making regionals.
Mm-hmm.
As Heather probably knows, 2018 was the last year that regionals existed.
Okay.
That was the year that they announced no more regionals. They were moving to the sanctionals format, where you had to do all of these like third-party competitions, and if you won one of the sanctionals, then you would qualify for the games, or you had to finish the Open.
You could qualify in the Open, right? Yeah.
But
that's
like, top
how
20
CrossFit
worldwide
should
is
be.
insanely
Yeah.
hard to do.
Oh, yeah. Hell no.
I feel like that's how CrossFit should be anyway, doing competitions to get there instead of the open format. I'm not a big fan of like the online stuff. Anyway.
I don't like the online stuff either. And I don't know what the right answer is. I
Yeah.
wish there was a way to have less online competition
Yeah.
for the season.
Right.
And I'm sure there's a better answer out there. I just don't know what it is yet.
Sure.
So
So anyway, you make it. It's 2019.
2019, there's no regionals, but it ends up being okay because I ended up getting deployed that year.
Okay.
So
Where'd you get deployed again?
I went to Qatar.
Okay.
I spent the 2019 Open between 3 different countries because that was
Wow.
as we were deploying. I was in Texas for part of it, I was in Kuwait for part of it, and I was in Qatar for part of it. And I just didn't have access to what I like, the equipment and the space that I would need to be able to do open workouts, nor did I have the time to do them because most of the time we're, you know, doing our pre-mobilization training. We're on 18-hour flights. We're going here, going there, packing up stuff. Like,
Sure.
it was just a crazy time.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So I did not do the 2019 Open. And then for the 2020 season, that was the year that they moved the Open to October.
Okay.
So the 2020 Open was also during my deployment.
That's COVID year, right?
Yes.
Yeah?
But
Okay.
the Open was October of 2019.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
I wasn't doing CrossFit yet.
yeah, so they basically were like, "Hey, we're going to move the Open back to like way earlier so that you know if you're qualifying through the Open, and you know that if you didn't qualify for the Open, you have the entire season of sanctionals to figure out how you're going to qualify."
Okay.
So 2020 Open, I was lucky enough that I was able to get to a CrossFit gym off base on the weekends during my deployment.
Nice.
Not every weekend, but I had a commander who was willing to let me go during the weekends of the Open. So I got to do the 2020 Open while I was deployed.
Sweet.
But I lost a lot of fitness during my deployment because before I deployed, I was starting to, I would take class, but I was starting to add in like, oh, I'm gonna do a lifting session before class, or I'm gonna work on this accessory work after class. So it still wasn't a ton of volume, but it was like I was starting to take it more seriously and like adding in some extra stuff. And then during the deployment, I just didn't have the time or the resources to be able to train the same way.
Sure.
So I came back early 2020. I've told this story a few times recently, but I remember my first workout back from deployment, and it was like a 12-minute AMRAP of ski erg and dumbbell something or other, and it was something where like pre-deployment I would have been pushing like 4, 5, 6 rounds, and when I did this workout, I got like maybe 2 rounds.
Damn.
And I sat on the floor of the gym and cried for like 10 minutes because I was so sad about the level of fitness that I had lost during the deployment. And I was like, I'm never going to get back to where I was. And all that work was for nothing. And then, within 2 to 3 months, I'm basically back to where I was at. But in the moment, it felt like devastating.
So at this point though, was CrossFit like in your sight? Were you thinking about possibly trying to go all the way with it already?
He had decided that in 2019, you said?
Well, okay, so I decided after the 2017 Open that I wanted to see like what I could do if I tried.
Yeah, but was it
I did not at that time excuse me. At that time, my goal was like regionals.
right?
Like how cool would it be to go to regionals? And then when they introduced the sanctionals format, it was more like, hey, can I even qualify to compete at a sanctional?
Yeah.
Because it was like, Wadapalooza, Dubai,
Granite
Filthy
Games,
150,
yeah.
Granite Games, that all had these online qualifiers. So like you couldn't even go to the sanctional unless you qualified for the sanctional. And so it was never in my mind of like, I want to make it to the games, because I didn't think that was ever going to be a possibility for me.
Right.
It was more just like, hey, I want to see if I can compete at a high level, like at all.
Yeah.
And I just want to see what I can do and
Right.
where I can go. And then 2020, I come back from deployment, the world shuts down.
What timing?
Yeah, right. So for a couple months, I was able to just train full time because I came back and started applying to jobs, but nobody was hiring.
Right.
And I was lucky enough that my deployment qualified me for unemployment. So I was able to collect unemployment and at least survive.
Nice.
And so I was just training. And my coach at the time was the owner of the gym, and he let me train in the gym while it was closed. I would be there either with my best friend, Elena, or when we ended up having opposite schedules, I would just be in the gym by myself every day training throughout COVID. I ended up, excuse me.
Yeah. Take a sip of
My
water.
throat is so dry.
You're good.
May of 2020, I think.
Yeah.
I got activated by the New Jersey National Guard for the COVID response in New Jersey. So then I spent about 14 months on active duty orders in New Jersey. I was the deputy commander of one of our joint task forces for a while, and then I moved into a position as the state medical planner for New Jersey.
Wow. What was that like?
That was wild.
I bet.
It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, but also probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
Okay.
I
What were you responsible for?
So I worked for the joint surgeon office, and the unique thing about the National Guard is that it can be deployed within the United States.
Okay.
Active Army, active military, and reserve forces cannot be deployed within the states. It's like the country's way of protecting the citizens from the government, like deploying forces on them, basically.
Yeah, right.
But the National Guard can be deployed within the United States, generally for things like natural disasters. You know, you'll see them get deployed a lot for hurricane responses, things like that. So we were activated for COVID, and the National Guard has two branches, Army and Air Force. Most of the time, they work separately. However, for a big response like this, we often have to do joint operations. So most of the COVID operations were joint operations, meaning Army soldiers and Air Force airmen working together. When you have joint operations, you have a joint staff that runs the operations and manages the operations. And there will be different staff sections within that joint staff that are responsible for different things. So the Joint Surgeon Office was responsible for like medical everything. So we wrote medical policy. We tracked COVID within the National Guard, within the state. We did contact tracing. We had to develop all of these standard operating procedures for like operating within a COVID environment.
Yeah.
Procuring COVID tests, figuring out isolation protocols, quarantine protocols, all that kind of stuff. So, and then on top of that, there was a lot of like reporting to higher agencies. Like we worked a lot with FEMA. We worked a lot with the New Jersey Department of Health. My immediate boss was on a lot of calls with like the adjutant general for the New Jersey National Guard, the governor of New Jersey, all that kind of stuff. So there was definitely a political side to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was just like, it was funny because in the military, medical is usually like, oh, they're medical. They'll just do their own thing. They'll figure it out. Like they're just let them do what medical is going to do. And kind of just like brush to the side. And for the first time, everyone cared about medical because nobody understood COVID,
Right.
including medical.
Yeah.
But everybody expected us to understand it
Yeah.
and know what the answers were. So that was a very a very challenging experience, but probably one of the things in my life that I learned the most from,
Yeah.
and like grew the most from.
Cool.
So it, as hard as it was, I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. That sounds super stressful.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And New Jersey was one that was like destroyed
Yes.
by COVID.
New Jersey had a rough time. Not quite as bad as New York, but still a rough time. So that was 2020 through about half of 2021.
Yep.
And at that time, I luckily was still able to get a decent amount of training in. I ended up getting connected. So the 2020 Open I did while I was deployed, and then it was a whole year and a half until the next Open at the beginning of 2021. And that was the first year they introduced quarterfinals, semifinals.
Okay.
So 2021, this was when North America was a single region, and you had to finish quarterfinals top 120 to qualify for semifinals. And I finished quarterfinals about 100 spots out of qualifying for semifinals in 2021.
For anybody that doesn't know about CrossFit, that's really impressive by itself.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's super
Thank you.
impressive.
So At the time, my coach was my best friend, Elena,
Mhm.
and she was 21, fresh out of college, had just finished her degree in like kinesiology, sports, something or other. Uh, Amazing coach, amazing programmer, very good understanding of programming, of
Physiology.
physiology, of like everything that goes into it. But both of us were very naive to what it means to train as an elite CrossFitter and
Yeah.
what it takes to get to like an elite level in CrossFit. And so we had a lot of conversations about, you know, she never wanted me to feel like I needed to stay with her just because we were friends.
Yeah.
She was like, if there's a better opportunity for you out there, take it. Like, I have faith that if we stay together doing this, we'll figure it out. But if there's somebody out there who already knows how to do it and can get you there, like, go.
That's a good friend.
Yeah.
Because a lot of coaches would like not offer you that opportunity to leave them because if they see potential in you, they just want to keep you so that they
Yeah.
can have the glory no matter how long it takes.
Yeah.
Not realizing that it'll stunt your growth, you know?
And theirs, honestly.
Yeah.
And so I am so grateful to her, and she's still my best friend to this day.
That's
I
awesome.
love her so much. But she and the fact that she had all of this mindset at 21 just amazes me.
Yeah. That's really mature.
Yeah, right. But so I started kind of like asking around, sending some emails, figuring out what to do. I was talking with my nutrition coach, Meredith, and she was working out of a gym in Kansas, Cobra Command CrossFit. And she was like, oh, I should connect you with Jill. She coaches some games athletes. And, you know, she's the owner of the gym here in Kansas. And just like talk to her and see. So I got on a phone call with Jill. She ended up inviting me out for a weekend in Kansas. I went out, trained out there for a weekend, loved it.
Yeah.
So in September or October of 2021, I ended up moving to Kansas. I had just come off orders from the Jersey Guard. I just finished all of the COVID stuff. Packed everything up, moved to Kansas, and went all in on CrossFit.
Yeah, that's amazing. So with all this, were you doing anything else work-wise besides the guard? Or is it just the guard? And then when you're done with the medical stuff, you don't have to work at all? How does that all work?
So while I was activated, I was full-time Army.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my only job.
Okay.
When I came off of those orders,
Yeah.
I went back to just being a regularly drilling guardsman.
Okay.
Which is
Once a month or
yeah,
something.
you go to drill once a month. You have annual training for 2 to 3 weeks every year. I had tried to do an interstate transfer from the New Jersey Guard to the Kansas Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And I did some drills in Kansas with the unit that I was intending to transfer into. The whole process got screwed up because, you know, bureaucracy and American government and
We all know how that goes.
yeah, paperwork is paperwork.
Yeah.
So after about a year, my interstate transfer still hadn't processed. My packet got lost I don't know how many times. So I asked my New Jersey unit to just switch it to a resignation packet.
Got it.
I was also getting to a point in my life where I felt like I had given all I could to the Army,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't enjoy it anymore. And
What got you into the Army in the first place?
I got a recruiting letter before I started my freshman year of undergrad.
Okay.
And it was, you know, hey, join ROTC, we'll pay for your college. And I kind of laughed it off. I showed it to my mom, and I was like, oh, I could join the Army. She's like, haha, good joke. And then my dad saw the letter, and he sat me down, and he was like, hey, listen, this is a real thing. Like, you could do this. And I was like, no, I can't join the Army. There are a bunch of like superhuman whatever. At the time, I was pretty overweight, unathletic, hated any sort of exercise.
Sure.
And I was like, they're all superhumans. Like, I can't be in the Army. And he's like, well, that's not true.
Yeah.
You know, the Army is regular people.
And they become superhuman.
Yeah. Well, but anyway, so we just had a talk. I am very similar to my dad in a lot of ways. And he told me that one of his biggest regrets in his life is that he didn't somehow serve his country when he was younger, whether it was through the military or something else.
Wow.
Like he felt he had a lot of regret that he didn't find some sort of service that he could do. And after I talked with him, I felt like if I had the opportunity to at least try it and I didn't take that opportunity, I would also regret it.
Yeah.
So I was able to, you know, you can be in the ROTC program without signing a contract up until your junior year of college.
Wow.
So I tried it out. You don't get money or anything like that until you sign a contract. But you can just be in the program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried it out my freshman year. I ended up enjoying it. I applied for a scholarship. They offered me a 3-year scholarship to pay for the rest of my college. And once I accepted that scholarship, I had to sign my contract.
Sweet. Wow. Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then you get the offer to come out by Jill in Kansas. And then what happens?
Yeah, so I moved to Kansas. I started training more volume than I ever thought I would be humanly capable of.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. It was very eye-opening. You know, like I had talked about, Elena and I were just going in blind. And like we didn't know what we didn't know. And when I started training with Jill, it was like, oh, wow. Like, you literally train everything.
Yeah.
And like you can't be successful in competitive CrossFit if you're not training everything.
Yeah.
How
many hours a day were you training before going out there?
With Elena, I was probably training about 2 to 3 hours a day.
So were you living a pretty semi-normal life?
Yeah.
Like, were you drinking, eating, whatever?
No. Well, I don't think I stopped drinking. I stopped drinking when I got back from my deployment.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wasn't drinking at the time. And I had a nutrition coach, so I was like pretty consistent with my nutrition. You know, maybe not quite as strict as I am now.
Okay.
But still like considering it, and it was a big part of what I did.
Sure.
But you know, I was working. I was doing all these other things that I don't do anymore.
Right. Yeah. So you're living a semi-normal lifestyle. Like, people wouldn't look at you and think like, holy shit, this girl is like crazy.
No.
Yet.
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. And then, so what's like the response from people when you're like, yeah, I'm going to do the thing. I'm moving to fucking Kansas. That's where you went, right? Not Kentucky, Kansas.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Those two states. you go to Kansas. What's like the response from people? How do they view it? What are they saying?
People thought I was crazy.
Yeah, because it is crazy.
My family thought I was crazy. My dad thought I was making a huge mistake.
Really?
He was like, what are you going to do? Like this, like, how are you going to make a living? All this kind of stuff. Because he did not fully understand what I was doing.
Right.
I remember getting a phone call from my brother maybe about 6 months after I moved to Kansas. And he had just watched one of the Fittest on Earth documentaries about one of the CrossFit games.
Yeah.
And he calls me because it just like popped up on Netflix for him one day.
Sure.
And he calls me and he goes, Ellia, I just watched this documentary. Is this what you do? And I was like, well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to get to the CrossFit Games, which is what that was about. And he was like, holy shit, I had no idea.
Yeah.
He was like, when you say you work out, like, I never understood that this is what you meant. And then I think once my dad saw how serious and dedicated I was to it, when I moved to Kansas, he started to become more understanding of like, okay, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
And then I think what really opened his eyes was when he came and watched me at semifinals this year. And I think he was more excited for me to be at semifinals than I was.
That's so cool.
Like I could hear him yelling on every single workout. All of our phone calls since semifinals, he's just like, you're going to make it next year. I know you can do it. Like, I know you've got more in the tank.
That's so cool.
I can feel it. Like, you need to do this.
Yeah. So when you moved though to Kansas originally too, I keep going back to this 'cause I keep forgetting to ask you, but like you don't have income at the time, right? Like you're just moving out with no prospecting like income at all.
Yeah.
You're moving with a savings account. I remember you telling me that you literally were like, I don't think you told me a number, but you're like, I have X amount of savings. I don't have a job. I'm working out deals with like my PT and some food company. I think you have like a food prep company, right? Or you did?
And my nutrition coach.
Your nutrition coach. And you're like, and I'm just doing it. And I too, I'm the person that's like, you need to follow your dreams, all this stuff. And I'm like, this bitch is fucking nuts. Like she has no, but I envy it so much, you know, because I would love to have the same opportunity that you have, obviously, but I admire it. I think it's amazing. So when you do it, like what's going through your head? Like what makes you finally be like, dude, fuck it. I have to do this shit.
Yeah, I think it was, okay, so I had saved enough money from my deployment that I knew I could make it about 2 years on my savings account. And I had talked with Jill about...
How do you do math like that? Like, how do you know that?
Did
Minimum
you just hear her
expenses.
talking about all those experiments and stuff?
Yeah,
And that's
but
probably easy for her.
But for me, I'm like, okay, so I don't know. Maybe it's just like doomsday stuff. But I'm like, my windshield has broken this year.
Oh,
my
I didn't
AC broke.
consider any of that
Okay.
stuff.
So you're just
I was
thinking
just
rent,
like,
minimum.
rent, bills, groceries, gas. Like, what are the things that I pay on a monthly basis?
Yeah.
Made a spreadsheet, made some estimates, said, all right, I can probably make it 2 years, give or take a couple months.
Yeah.
And then I had talked with Jill about, you know, potential opportunities to do like some administrative stuff for the gym.
Sure.
I ended up getting my L1 shortly after I moved out there and I started coaching at the gym.
Cool.
So there were, and at the time I was also in the guard. So I had a little bit of income from drill weekends as well. So there were opportunities to kind of supplement my savings account.
Sure.
But and actually, so before I moved, I was about a year to a year and a half into the application process for the FBI.
Pause. Pause. Hold on. Okay, we got to restart. This is the last time I'm going to restart. All right. What?
Okay. So we're a year and a half into an application process for the FBI.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So this was one of the things when I came back from my deployment, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life right before COVID happened. And I was submitting applications. And one of the applications I submitted was to the FBI to be a special agent. And
You wanted to take down Russians and shit?
that's more CIA.
Oh, okay.
FBI is more domestic.
Got it. Okay.
That's like drugs and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. My
Drugs,
bad.
gangs, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Sweet.
White collar crime, blue collar crime. So I had started an application for the FBI. You go through a phase 1 written test. You go through a phase 2 interview process. And then you go through a background check and a polygraph. And your results from your phase 1 and your phase 2 are good indefinitely unless at some point in the future they change the application process. But as long as that is the application process, if you pass phase 1, it's good forever. If you pass phase 2, it's good forever.
Wow.
At the time that I decided to move to Kansas, I had passed phase 1, I had passed phase 2, I had done my polygraph, and they were well into my background check. I had been talking with the applicant coordinator, and she had basically told me, you will most likely be receiving an offer to Quantico within the next week or 2.
Wow.
And I
What the
said,
heck?
thank you, but I would like to withdraw my application.
What? Okay, this is okay. I'm getting my time. So this is before Kansas, or you're in Kansas?
This is before I moved to Kansas.
So she's telling you that you might actually be in the FBI, and you're like, CrossFit.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, all right.
And so at the time, I was 29, I
Okay,
think.
this is like a year ago.
2 years.
2 years
Yeah.
ago.
2 and almost 3 years ago.
Okay.
I knew that I had the potential to make it further in the sport of CrossFit.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I had an opportunity to pursue that and I
Mhm.
didn't try it, I would regret it for the rest of my life. And I would always wonder, what if?
Yeah.
When I withdrew my application and moved to Kansas, the original plan was I'm going to give myself 2 years. And whatever happens in 2 years, I will reapply to the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
I would go back basically just into the background check process. So they would redo the polygraph and the background check. Everything else, like my application from the rest of it, would still be good. So it would be a much shorter process. You can apply to the FBI up until, I think, the age of 35. And with my active service years from the military, I think I would have been able to push it to like 38 or 39, maybe.
Nice.
So I knew I still had time to go back to that if I wanted to.
Mhm.
And I wasn't closing the door on that forever. So I moved to Kansas. I said, I'm here for 2 years. Whatever happens, happens. And then I'll go back into the FBI. About 6 months into Kansas, I realized fitness is my passion. Fitness is my life. Fitness is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So obviously I still could go back to the FBI route if I wanted to for at least the next couple years. Right now I have no plans to do that just
Yeah.
because I am so happy and fulfilled in the fitness space. And I could see myself staying in this space for the rest of my life and being happy for the rest of my life. So yeah.
It's time for your
That's
questions.
fucking awesome.
Yeah.
No, because I want to just dive a little bit deeper on that.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously, a huge sacrifice is just picking up and moving, right? And just like leaving your home base already to go there. But what are the other things that you really feel like you have had to sacrifice to make this dream a reality?
Yeah, I mean, so a big part of it is like moving, leaving everything. You know, I had already left my family
Mhm.
to move to New Jersey for grad school. And then when I left New Jersey to move to Kansas, I felt like I was leaving family again in New Jersey because I had built up this support system on the other side of the country while my family was still in California. And then, 6 years later, I'm just leaving.
Yeah.
I had opportunities to pursue. In addition to applying to the FBI, I also applied to the New Jersey State Police.
Mhm.
I ended up withdrawing my application from them.
Because they were going to hire you.
Yeah.
Well, I was still in the process, but I had passed the physical. I had passed the written test.
She's a narc. The FBI and the cop.
They're going to be like, this Ellia Miller is just applying to all these jobs. And then she
What the
withdraws her
fuck?
application. Something is wrong.
Something's wrong with her. Yeah.
Just a lost soul trying to figure out what I want to do with my life.
And then you found it. Anyway.
But I had opportunities through the National Guard to pursue a career in the Army. There were a number of full-time opportunities that I could have taken in the National Guard that I turned down because I knew it wasn't what was going to make me happy.
Yeah.
I always thought when I left New Jersey, it would be to go back to my family in California.
Mhm.
And instead I moved to the middle of nowhere, Kansas.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. My family is really important to me, and it's really hard to be so far away from them, especially right now. My brother has 4 kids, and
Wow.
I am not getting to be around watching my nieces and nephews grow up,
Yeah.
which is really sad. I visit when I can, but you know, there's also the financial side of it. Like, I moved to Kansas with a savings account that any sane person probably would have invested or saved for an emergency. And I decided that was just going to be my 2 years worth of rent money.
When you're chasing like a dream though, you have to go all in.
Yeah.
Right? You can't like kind of do it because it won't kind of happen.
And I feel like that was where I was at. Like I had like 85% committed. And I was only getting 85% results.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, if I want to get the 100% results that I'm looking for, I need to commit 100%. And to me, that was my life now becomes every decision I make is how is this going to get me to the CrossFit Games?
Yeah. That's how it has to be. So when people are saying that you're crazy, like, is it getting to your head at all?
No.
What do you think? No. Are you just kind of like, fuck you?
Not that. It's more like
you're too nice for that.
It's more like, yeah, you probably think I'm crazy, but that's okay because I know this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I know that this is making me happy. So like, go ahead, think I'm crazy. I'll be all right.
Have you always been that way? Like that?
Oh, absolutely
mindset?
not.
No?
Absolutely not. I had a lot of self-esteem issues growing up, middle school, high school, college. I really didn't start to like truly feel confident in myself until I started CrossFit.
And what was the shift?
So I think a big part of it for me was like understanding what I'm capable of initially on a physical level, and then understanding that those physical capabilities are largely due to my mental capabilities, like understanding what I'm mentally capable of to push myself in the gym to develop those physical capabilities. And so just like really just understanding that I am strong, I am capable, you know, all those like daily affirmations.
The cheesy shit. But the cheesy shit works.
It does.
You got that from CrossFit though?
Yeah.
You're part of you were in the military and you had a neuroscientist. You know, it came from CrossFit after doing, I mean, because both those things are like huge accomplishments on their own.
So
CrossFit, you're just like, it's a choice. I just decided to work out one day, you know? I get it because I can relate. CrossFit has taught me so much about myself that I didn't know beforehand.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting that you were already military. You had a PhD, or you is that pseudo master?
I think part of it was a lot of my insecurities came from being uncomfortable in my body and being uncomfortable with my physical appearance.
Yeah.
And so the initial mental transformation, I think, was sparked by my physical transformation.
Sure.
And starting to realize, so part of it was, you know, losing weight and starting to be more happy with my physical appearance.
Yeah.
And then that turned into realizing that my physical appearance doesn't matter, and just like being proud of what my body is capable of, regardless of physical appearance.
Sure.
And then that developed into being proud of what my mind is capable of. And it kind of just like snowballed.
Yeah.
But I do, like, it sounds cheesy, but CrossFit truly did change my life.
That's really interesting to me too, because you come from neuroscience. You know, that you're like, CrossFit taught me what my mind is capable of, not the book, you know?
Well, that's because my neuroscience was so nitty gritty that I could
Yeah.
never make the connection.
Sure. That makes sense. Because I feel like, for me at least, CrossFit like showed me, like, I don't know, I guess, the same thing. Like what you're truly capable of. I grew up, my childhood was really hard, really rough. I went through a lot of adversity, but CrossFit for some reason showed me like that no matter what, I can just like get through it, because you're fucking choosing to die every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like that shit that people always say, like for ice baths, like super popular. They're like, choose adversity today because it shows you a better tomorrow or whatever. But it's so true.
Yeah. And I think I think another big part of it for me was also the community in CrossFit.
That's
And I know
huge.
everybody always
Yeah.
talks about the CrossFit community, and it's probably overtalked at this point. But I had a lot of issues with personal relationships growing up, and I
Okay.
had a really hard time making friends throughout most of my life through college. And when I showed up to a CrossFit gym, it was just like this group of people that just embraced me no matter what. And
Yeah.
like, they didn't care what I looked like. They didn't care what I was wearing. Like, they didn't care about any of that stuff. They just cared that I showed up
As long as you like
and I put the
CrossFit.
work in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which actually I would tend to disagree with you. I think that the community aspect of CrossFit, I think it's gotten lost. Because being new to it, and I don't want this to be a total CrossFit like talk, but this is something I'm really passionate about with the CrossFit space is the community aspect, because in no other fitness like modality do you find that type of community. And community is so important. And I think COVID highlighted that, how
Yeah.
important that social aspect is and the community aspect is for people's well-being in general. You know, a lot of people that I know that are like in the bodybuilding world or even powerlifting, they're sad, you know, like because
Yeah.
they don't have the same support group. Not that everybody's trying to be a competitive CrossFitter, and those people are probably not, you can't lump them in with the community aspect
Yeah.
as much, but I think that the community part needs to be talked about more, and more people would actually be like wanting to join it
Yeah.
if they realize how much it changed people's lives. But anyway, you move to Kansas, you can't see family, you say whatever to people that don't care or that think you're crazy. What are like the things that you have had to sacrifice and continue to sacrifice to like make this dream a reality?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just like I could very easily go out and start a career in some desk job or whatever and have a very comfortable life, you know, find a partner, settle down, start a family, whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm aware that what I am doing, trying to pursue this goal of making the CrossFit Games, I'm not giving myself the opportunity to do those things. I don't have uh uh like a solid career right now. I don't know what I'm going to do for money right now. I am not out meeting people trying to find a partner. I'm pushing, 32 and I still
That's so young.
but when you think about like I want to have kids one day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm going to have that opportunity.
You will.
Yeah, you will. But I get what you're saying.
But yeah,
It is
it's
definitely
like,
something that you're pushing back.
yeah, because like for me, it's like, okay, well, if I want to have kids, that means I need to find a partner. If I want to find a partner, that means I need to either be going out and meeting people or be on these dating apps and meeting
No.
people and and I don't have the time.
Yeah.
And
You'll
I
meet
know
someone in
that-
CrossFit.
Yeah, you will. That's how we met.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
But I know that like if I did meet somebody, I wouldn't have the time to devote to them right
Yeah.
now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big part of it. Another part of it, because of the struggles that I had growing up with making friends, now that I do have like really solid supportive friend groups,
Mhm.
I get really sad when I can't do things with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of our society revolves around eating and drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't drink. And I am
Except with
very-
Jeff Bezos, right?
Oh, I told you that story.
You told me. That's a story for a different time.
I have in fact gotten drunk with Jeff Bezos.
funny
One of the perks of going to Princeton.
Yes.
But yeah, and like, my friends always want to go out to eat, and most of the time I have to say no just because I know, or if I do go, I'm sitting there with my Tupperware of rice and chicken breast.
Yeah.
Because I know that if I go and I eat out at a restaurant, every once in a while, yeah, totally fine. But it's like my friends want to go out to dinner every Friday night. And if I go out to dinner every Friday night, I'm just not, that's going to pull me farther from my goals.
You'll lose sleep.
Yeah. I
Macros
lose
might not
sleep.
be right.
My training suffers the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just so many things that go into it. And so a lot of times I have to say no when people want to do things. Or if I do things, then I end up sacrificing recovery or whatever it may be. There are ways that I found to work around that. Like they really like to go to this Korean barbecue place. And that's super nice for me because I know, okay, I just need to plan for like a cup of white rice and a bunch of protein.
Yeah.
And I bring my scale and I weigh out all my meat as I eat it, and
You're
it's
that
great.
person, huh?
I am that person.
You have to be.
But it's a way that I have found to still be able to do those things with my friends and not sacrifice to the extent that I would otherwise be sacrificing to meet my goals.
Yeah. And you know that they're looking at you like she's the one. Like she's like they're probably so proud of you too, you know, and they don't look at it any bad way.
Yeah, they expect it.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, did Ellia bring her scale tonight?" Yeah, she did.
Yeah. That's awesome. Cool.
So, yeah.
Sweet, dude. Well, I think that you should ask the last 3 questions.
So, every guest, we have the same 3 questions
Okay.
that we ask at the end.
Oh boy.
I don't think they'll be hard for you.
No, I already know the answer.
Yeah.
The other 2 answers we'll see, but this answer I already know. What is your number 1 biggest goal right now?
Make it to the CrossFit Games.
Knew that.
Yeah.
I could have answered it. And then the last 2 questions are kind of like opposites of each other.
Okay.
So it's what are you willing to sacrifice to get there, and what are you not willing to sacrifice to get there?
Yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice material possessions, money, you know, eating out with friends, all that kind of stuff, like social opportunities, short-term sacrifice in potentially, you know, moving my personal life forward. The things I'm not willing to sacrifice, my family, my values, my like who I am as a person. I will not change who I am as a person, and I will not go against my values in pursuit of this goal.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's sweet. I think that's a great place to end it. Yeah, that's a perfect answer. So in case anybody was wondering, this is what going all in looks like.
Yes.
This is literally what going all in looks like. Wondering how you're going to get cash, training all the time, scheduling
Saying-
things around.
See ya to the FBI.
Yeah, literally. I can't believe that. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Like, did you see his face when you said that?
Well, because I was like, she's going to snitch if I pull out a bag of weed. I don't smoke weed. So. But dude, thanks so much for being on our pod. You're our
Thanks
fourth
for having me.
episode. Of
Yeah,
course,
I mean, if we count yours and mine.
Yeah, 4th episode, 3rd guest, and it was a pleasure. And I hope people, they'll love you just as much as we do. So
Yeah, it's really awesome to hear from somebody who's so passionate about their goals. So
because you have like the same mindset that I have with the ability to like actually execute because you don't have children. Yeah.
That does add an extra complication to things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
big complication.
So now we just execute as good as we can.
Yep.
Yeah.
With the kids. So anyway, thanks so much for listening. Thanks for being here, Leah. And like, subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
That was really good.
That was so good.
Yeah.
That was literally. It was exactly what we're looking for.